بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
So now the next thing we'll try to understand about the map resolver option. Like in the previous, we discussed about the map server. The map server is the one which maintains the data information or the database, where it tells you to reach out this particular endpoint. This is the routing locator you have to go with. So that is what your map server is going to do. Now we also have something called map resolver. Now this can be on the same router or a different router. Let's keep it separate. The map resolver is going to assist the endpoint identifier to, so whatever the mappings which is being maintained by the map server, that is going to be assisted by the map resolver. So which means the map resolver is going to act as an intermediate resolution for your mappings. So whatever the map requests which are being received, they will be sent to the map server for the mapping information, which means now this end ITR or the ETR. So any device which is going to say that, okay, I want to reach this particular endpoint. Let's say the endpoint identifier is 200.112, which is somewhere here. Now the map request is being sent to the map resolver, or the map resolver is going to act as intermediate and find the information or send it to the appropriate map server for that particular map information. As I said earlier, we do have a multiple distributed map server database, the map server database. So probably it is going to send out to the appropriate map server for the mapping information. So this way, probably it is going to enable the LISP network to communicate in a more efficient way. So the different roles, what you will see here is the map resolver is going to do. So different roles or responsibilities. It is responsible for endpoint identifier to routing locator resolution. So typically, as we discussed already in the LISP network, the entire communication is done based on the endpoints. And these endpoints will be identified where they are exactly based on the routing locator information. So whenever any device in the LISP network wants to communicate with any other device in the LISP network, they need to resolve this EID present on which device. So that is what the resolution. Of course, this map server maintains the database, and then the map resolver is going to assist in resolving this information. So that is one kind of first role, or the role it is going to do. Not only that, it also handles your map request handling. So map request handling, as I said, whenever the device wants to communicate with this particular endpoint, like let's say there is a device here wants to communicate with this endpoint, it has to know the routing locator, right? So that routing locator, it has to send out a map request. So the map request is being sent to the map resolver. So here, the map request handling is done by the map resolver. And the map request includes that I want to go to 200.112, that is my endpoint identifier, and I want to know what will be the routing locator to reach out. And once this request is being sent, the map request is being sent, the next thing is the map request is being forwarded. Because now here in our case, the map resolver do not have that information. So here, who is having that information? The information is being maintained by the map server. So the resolver do not have the information or do not hold any mapping information itself, because it is not aware of that, because that is not the job. So it only awaits of the map servers in the network, and then it is going to forward those requests to the appropriate map server based on the endpoint you want to go. So because as it is a distributed database, you might have multiple map servers, so it is going to send out to the appropriate map server. So that is what map request forwarding we can say here. So that's basically the map request forwarding. So we can say like forwarding happens here. So the map request forwarding is exactly happening here, being sent. So that is the next thing. And then finally, there is a map reply forwarding. So map reply here In the case of map reply forwarding, now, whatever the mapping server is going to receive the map request, it is going to reply back. So it's going to reply back with the information saying that you want to go to 200.1.1.2, you have to go to this particular device or whatever the routing locator ID. That information is actually replied, and that is being forwarded back to the requesting device. So the requesting device will be getting that information back from the map resolver. So basically, this reply forwarding happens here. So as you can see the process here, there are multiple different steps or multiple different roles it is going to do. So if you just quickly summarize the resolution, because whenever this device wants to communicate with any endpoint, so it has to send this information. So basically it is like assisting the map server. That's the first thing. And not only that, it is going to handle the map request. That's a map request, and then it is going to forward those map requests to the map server. There's a second and third process. This is second and the third process. And likewise, whatever the reply comes, basically that is what the map reply forwarding happens here. So if you try to illustrate with a quick example, let's try to add some more examples for the map resolver, practically how it works inside the LISP network. I'll take an example. Let's say you got multiple branch offices here. So this is my LISP network, branch offices on both the sites, and they already have some endpoint identifiers. And let's assume these are the routing locators present here. So we want the data transmission between these two devices. That's what we want. And while you do that, again, as I said, there will be the endpoint, the request, saying that I want to go to 200.1.1.2, right? That's my endpoint identifier I want to reach out. So probably the endpoint is going to send out a map request to the map resolver. That's a request which is being sent to the map resolver, and then that particular request is being processed and forwarded back to the mapping server. And then the mapping server is going to reply back with information, and that is your map reply forwarding again. The same thing what we discussed here in the same example. So the end-to-end data transmission happens, and that is, so whatever the end-to-end data transmission happens with the help of LISP, but in between there are some map resolvers as well as your mapping servers, which will basically provide you or provide the information about how to reach out to the specific endpoint. And here, as I said, the map resolver is going to act as an intermediate between your map server as well as your endpoint. So the request and the replies will be going through the map resolver, because the resolution and the forwarding, and then whatever the reply, the resolution, handling, forwarding, these all the things happens via resolver. Now there are two possibilities. Now there is one more thing we need to know here. Like, okay, so let's say I'm trying to reach out some device, let's say 212.1.1.1. So somewhere a Yahoo server, which is not a part of the LISP network. So now there are two possibilities. Either the request is being sent to the 200.1.1.2, which is a part of the LISP network. So if you want to go to this particular endpoint, which is a part of the LISP network, so we have seen that just now. So there is also a possibility that you want to go to internet somewhere which is a non-LISP network. Because whenever you send out a request, like let's say I want to go to 212. So now the request goes to your map resolver, and then the map resolver is going to forward it to the map server, and the map server says, if I know, and I'm going to reply. That's what we discussed previously. Now there is a possibility that if there is no entry present inside the map server, so kind of a negative map reply, which means I want to go to 212.1.1.1, as this is not a part of the LISP network, so the mapping server do not maintain the information about that. So probably there will be a negative reply. So negative reply is just like, I don't have the information about the particular endpoint you want to reach. So that negative reply will be sent to this particular router. So now this ITR or the router, the tunnel router, it receives a negative reply. It understands that, okay, I'm getting a negative reply means the destination is not part of the LISP network, which means it is going to use a normal IP routing table to reach out that particular destination. Okay. So these are the two things we need to understand, because there is a possibility that you might be trying to reach out a LISP network. In that case, the map server and the map resolver are going to help you out. But what if the request is not going to a LISP network? In that scenarios, again, there will be a negative reply, which is being sent by the resolver. And based on that, the router will understand that it has to forward back to the normal network or the normal network without any LISP encapsulations.